This is the concierge, sir.
And welcome, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and in this week, I pose this question to you. Do I have to see that attraction? Is this just something I can't miss? Well, in this episode, I'm going to be the definitive answer on whether or not you have to do this attraction or if you can skip it on your next trip to Las Vegas. So in this episode, I'm actually going to be listing some of the attractions in Vegas and explaining some of the reasoning of, yes, you have to do this, or yeah, you could probably wait till next time you come to Vegas to check this out. And sometimes it's not a yes or no answer, but I will do my best to give you the yes or no answers to it. Lots of nuance depending on what you're going to see and depending what age you are and all that other good stuff. So in this episode, I tell you what attractions are can't miss and some that you can probably put off till next time. So that's coming up next on Concierge Confidential. Okay, everybody. So I get this question quite a lot is, man, do I have to see that? Or I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. And it's always up to you. That's actually the first thing I want to talk about is that these are always up to you, whether or not you want to do these attractions. And there are some things that I think that if you've come to Las Vegas and it's your first time, that you really just have to knock out. And I think that goes for any time you go traveling. If it's your first time to that city, go ahead and do the touristy thing. I know everyone says it's not cool to do it, but if you're going to New York City and you've never been to New York City, you should probably go check out the Statue of Liberty or go look at Times Square. You've seen these things so many times, and you're going to want to see what this is like or experience it, just so when someone says, hey, did you go see Times Square when you were in New York? You can at least say yes. And the thing about this is that these are always safe options when you're traveling. Typically, tourist attractions or tourist traps, which are very different, are somewhat different things. I can think of the pawn shop as one. One is a tourist attraction and one is a tourist trap. This happens a lot, like when you travel to Europe, just because Europe is very old. It has lots of very old attractions, which is very different than America. But I visited Pisa, which is the Leaning Tower, and you don't know this because every time you see pictures of Leaning Tower of Pisa, it's of the attraction or of the building. And when you actually get there, you have to drive about an hour outside of the next major city, which is usually like Rome or something of that nature. And you get off the bus, and then everybody's trying to sell you trinkets and all these different souvenirs that you never thought that you would see there. And then you actually just like walk around, you look at the church that's right next to the Leaning Tower, and you don't even get to go up into the tower because you're on a tour, and you just spent like half a day looking at this Leaning Tower. So sometimes this is what a tourist trap is. So that happens quite a lot when you go to places like Europe or Asia, where they have these very, very historic pieces that aren't always depicted, great. Like I went to Notre Dame, which Notre Dame is actually a really good example of a tourist attraction because, well, actually it's a church. We should also know that from the beginning. But it's right in the heart of Paris. Same thing with like the Eiffel Tower, is that these are things that are pretty well regulated and are in places that you can go and do other things. Like to me, the Leaning Tower of Pisa is a tourist trap because it takes you away from the rest of the city, and also like you're there for one thing. So it always kind of depends. So it's also value as well. The cool thing about Vegas is that most things are within reach of each other. You don't have to go too far outside the city to see a lot of these attractions, with some exceptions, of course. But I'll be going over a few of them here. So let's go ahead. And before I start, I actually got somebody that was listening to the comments or was listening to the show on YouTube and said, it seems like my parents are always in town. Well, good for you. They're not coming to Vegas anymore the rest of the week because of you. No, they were actually just in town a couple of times because, one, my mom came by herself. Two, my dad came with my mom to see the Eagles for something else. So honestly, don't care that they're always here with me because I live in a tourist city and they're also, in their 60s, still working, but they're flexible. And they come to Vegas whenever they want. So you can kick rocks. And thanks for listening. But Before I get into this, to the actual episode, just want to let you guys know I have a new podcast out. It's called Movie Magic, or The Magic of Movies. The Magic of Movies is by me, obviously, and one of my other really passionate things that I really enjoy is movies. I actually talk about betting on movies at my other job, and I also just really wanted an outlet to tell you guys or talk about films and just why I love movies. I'll go over different topics. I'll share movies that I really enjoy. I'll also talk about movies and give the reviews of movies that I've just seen, and also talk about the Oscar race as well. So those are all the things that I'm passionate about, and I didn't want to flood it into this particular pod because that's not what this pod is for. But just want you guys to know, if you want to hear me, I'll probably be putting out one of those episodes a week, maybe two, depending how, much you guys want to hear me talk about movies. But we are here to talk about Las Vegas, but go ahead and check that out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your pods. It's called The Magic of Movies with me, Brian Ortega. So I'll also put a link in the description here as well. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive into it. So the Vegas attractions you can't miss. So I'll go ahead and say, if I give it a 2 cross keys, that means that you got to see it. If I give it 1 cross key, kind of in the middle. If I don't give it any, then that means maybe you're not missing anything out. So I'll try to keep that straight as I go through the pod. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So let's talk about my number 1 favorite. And obviously, since it's my favorite, it's probably one that you can't miss. And that is the Bellagio fountains. The Bellagio fountains are free. Not very many things in Vegas are free anymore. So Bellagio fountains should be number 1 on your list. It has all the perfect things that a tourist attraction should have. It is centrally located, it's convenient to walk to, and it happens multiple times a day. So the Bellagio fountains right now, which is kind of funny. So right now, they are still running, but it's really hard to see them from the front side because it is during F1. This is probably the worst time to try to come and watch the fountains because of all the construction. You can still see them. There are ways to see them with the construction still going on. If you go up, there's a walkway that actually connects the Strip to the Bellagio. It's actually right next to the bus stop in front of the Bellagio Hotel, kind of next to the Cosmopolitan. It's right where the walkway is to the entrance of the Bellagio, where the drive is. And you can go up those escalators, and there's actually a view of the fountains and also a beautiful view of the Strip from that area as well. But the Bellagio fountains, to me, are one thing you cannot miss when you come to Las Vegas. It's probably one of our most iconic features of the city, especially of modern Las Vegas in particular. It's sort of like what the volcano was during the 90s, and then the Bellagio fountains has kind of become the staple of Las Vegas. They have over 35 different songs. I think it's actually reached up to 40 at this point. When you're coming in the daytime, Monday through Thursday, typically they run from 3 o'clock until midnight. It's usually about every 30 minutes until sundown. Once it hits sundown, it's every 15 minutes until midnight. And then when you get here on the weekends, starting usually on Friday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, these shows typically start at noon and will run 30 minutes until sundown. And then once sundown happens, it's every 15 minutes until midnight as well. And fun fact, on Sundays, they typically start at 11 o'clock. So Bellagio fountains are random. Sometimes you can find what the schedule is by going to the concierge at the Bellagio in particular. It's usually, like I said, random, but they do have a lot of their favorites. They usually play Luck Be a Lady a couple times a day. They'll play Andrea Bocelli's Time to Say Goodbye. That is a staple that they must play every single night. They play the Star Spangled Banner. They'll play I'm Proud to Be an American. They usually play a couple of the higher energy songs. So they'll think like Lady Gaga. They usually have Bruno Mars, that kind of thing. So My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion is probably one of my favorites. But Bellagio fountains to me are the number 1 attraction. You have to see Double Cross Keys to see the Bellagio fountains. So going along with the fountains, by the way, is the Bellagio Conservatory. The Bellagio Conservatory is, again, a 2 cross-keyed thing where you cannot miss it. The Bellagio Conservatory is inside of the Bellagio right next to the front desk. It is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They do change it 4 times a year. They used to be 5. It's now 4. Where they typically change it for Chinese New Year, spring, summer, fall, and then I think they actually eliminated the fall one. I forget. And then the winter one. So It goes with the seasons. The only thing is, though, I don't like that they don't use as many real flowers as they used to, but it's all coming for us. It's all budgeting. But overall, the Bellagio Conservatory is really fantastic because, again, it is free. It is beautiful, even with all of the sort of budgetary cuts. It still is a wonderful thing to see with all the beautiful flowers on the inside, and it's always fun to see what they come up with next. But again, it's one of those things that is free and definitely worthwhile doing because it is centrally located and doesn't take up a whole amount of your time and doesn't take you away from any of your experiences. So the Bellagio Conservatory, 100% worth the time to go see. Also right next to it is this is kind of a bonus, is the world's largest chocolate fountain. This was always kind of the weird thing that I always like to plug. That is located right next to the Bellagio Conservatory as well. And get a dessert while you're there. So let's move into some of the ones that are a little bit more controversial. So let's talk about observation areas. We've got a couple of them here in Las Vegas. So I actually just thought of one as I was looking at the list I didn't mention. The Stratosphere Observation Tower at the Stratosphere. So the Stratosphere Observation Deck is typically $35 to go up to. And also up there, they used to have, it's so funny, it's such a long time ago, I almost said they're a roller coaster. They only have the Big Shot that shoots up, and I think they're almost getting rid of a lot of their rides. But if you do go up there, you get a great view of the city, the Strip, debatable. The only problem is because ever since we built Resorts World and the Fontainebleau, you can't really see the Strip from there, and it's very, very far away. And it's very, very high. So it's actually kind of funny because it's sort of, what's what I'm looking for? It's sort of, I can't remember the word, but it's funny because you get up there and you get a good view of the city, but the only thing you really want to see at nighttime is the Strip, and you can't really see it. So to me, the Stratosphere is something that you can actually not do on this list. If you want to go up there and dine up at the restaurant, the Top of the World restaurant, cool. But there are so many other restaurants on top of buildings that I think are so much better. So that's just my opinion. But again, the Stratosphere Observation Deck, I do not recommend. I would give that like a 0 star to go do that. Why? Because I have other options. So let's go back towards the middle of the Strip. Because again, when you get to the Stratosphere, you have to drive there. You have to go up to the top. You're going to look at the view, and then you're done. And there's nothing left at that hotel for you to do. Well, they have restaurants, but who wants to go to the restaurants at the Stratosphere? So sorry, shade to the Stratosphere. But that is probably one of the reasons I recommend you don't do the Stratosphere. But I will recommend a couple other options that you can do. If you want a really nice view from, like, let's just say a bar, I would highly recommend the Skytop Bar at the Resorts World. I believe it's like Alea 66, or they may have changed the name, but it has a beautiful view of the Strip looking north. It is enclosed. They don't really have an outdoor space, but it's really great if you want to go up, have a drink, look at the view, and it's all unobstructed because you are right on the corner of where the Strip starts to turn. So that's why I recommend do that. You don't have to pay to go up there unless it's on the weekends, where they typically enforce a 2-drink minimum over at the Resorts World bar on the top of the hotel. Another option, if you're somebody who does not want to drink, we do have the High Roller. The High Roller is the observation wheel over at the Link. This one is, I would say, one cross key on this one. Reason being is that the High Roller is definitely something fun to do, especially if it's your first time to Las Vegas and you want a view of the city. For any of these attractions, of course, when you do it in the daytime, the Strip doesn't look as impressive, so you're really up there to actually get a view of the entire city of Las Vegas. When you go at nighttime, the only thing you're going up there to see is the Las Vegas Strip. So the High Roller itself does change prices depending on if you go in the day or the nighttime. If I were you, this is always kind of a ridiculous thing to say, I would go at sunset because that's the best time to go. But you kind of have to time it right because you're actually paying for a daytime ticket to see the Strip at nighttime. So you do have to understand what time their cutoff is because it does change depending on the time of day. So just keep that in mind. But if I had to choose day or nighttime, I do think nighttime is the way I would go, because again, I might be biased because I live in the city, but you really came to Las Vegas to see all the pretty lights. And also the energy at nighttime on the Link Promenade is actually really, really fun, which you kind of get like a double dip. You get to do the high roller, and then you get to be on the Link Promenade when everything is kind of up and going, which really the Link Promenade is a fantastic space, especially if you want to do a lot of people watching or just walking outside. It's very, very safe area. It feels sort of like downtown Disney, but it has this mix of like, commercial stuff, and it also has some adult things down there, and they also have a comedy club, which is really nice as well. So highly recommend that. So I would say I would give it a 1 star on our 0, 1 star, or 2-star system, where this is, if you've never done it before, go ahead and try it while you're in town. And again, it's cool to go around 30 minutes and learn so many things about that beautiful wheel, which I worked out for a while. So more about our views. Another thing that you can actually combine with the high roller, which they typically sell these tickets, is the Eiffel Tower. You can go to the top of the Eiffel Tower and actually get a view of the Strip. To me, this is the superior experience of all of these if you want the best pictures and the best views of the Las Vegas Strip. It is the only of all these options that is in the dead center of the Strip and right on Las Vegas Boulevard, where when you go up, you are seeing right down on to the Las Vegas Strip. All these other options either are like far away or only one end of the Strip, or they're behind a building. High Roller is behind a couple of buildings because it's set back from the Strip, but the Eiffel Tower sits right on Las Vegas Boulevard. And you get unobstructed views. They do have you sort of caged in, but it is not glass, which gives you really, really good pictures of all the buildings on Las Vegas Boulevard. So Eiffel Tower, definitely worth it. I would actually give it 2 stars to do it, or 2 cross keys, just because it's sort of an original, and I really enjoy doing the Eiffel Tower experience when I went. You can't drink. It's not sort of like a drink and hang out kind of spot. You're going to be up there for about 20 minutes. You're going to see it, take your pictures, and then usually go down. So that's for all of the view experiences, which are very, very important. I totally understand. Also, if you go to the south end of the Strip, because let's just say the north end of the Strip is too far, there is also a skytop view, and that is the Skyfall Lounge over at Mandalay Bay, which to me actually offers one of the best views of the Las Vegas Strip, probably the most iconic to me, where you're able to see the pyramid and the light from the pyramid from the Luxor looking north, which has all the most beautiful views of the MGM Grand, the New York, all the buildings looking north, obviously. So that's called Skyview. You do have to be 21 years or older to go to that lounge. So speaking of the Mandalay Bay, let's move over to the Shark Reef Aquarium. Okay, now we're going to get into some of the fun ones. So the Shark Reef Aquarium is the aquarium at Mandalay Bay, which actually has a bunch of different amphibians. They also have sharks, of course, a couple different reptilians. I was going to try to snake that together with another thing, but a lot of different reptiles at that particular attraction. I would say this is a one cross key, which means do it with a caveat. I would say if you have children, this is a great experience to do. Why? Because what else are you going to do with your kids in Las Vegas? At least on the Strip, there's sort of like a limited number of things you can do with kids. If you've never done it with a child before, this is probably a good thing to do. If you are, adults, or if it's your first time and you're trying to maximize your time doing things, the Shark Reef Aquarium is basically only there for you to go to if you lost all your money or are trying to save money by not gambling in the casino. The Shark Reef Aquarium is fine. It's cool. You can go see their golden crocodile, but overall, the Shark Reef Aquarium is not an extensive aquarium. It's not super, super big, and it's, it feels... For those of you that are like in Baltimore or like Miami, where you have all these beautiful, great aquariums, this one's probably going to be a little bit of a letdown. So I would say if you have children, this is probably a good option. They have discounts for kids. So the Shark Reef Aquarium, I would say, is probably a 1 cross key. So moving on, let's keep talking about kid things. So let's go over to the Omega Mart over at Area 15. So Area 15 is this big, giant, multi-use space which is sort of like a giant art installation and experiences and different rooms. Omega Mart is part of that. So it's important to note that Omega Mart is an add-on to the tickets you buy to go to Area 15, which Area 15 is really, really cool if you have like 15-year-olds. This is actually a very like specific thing. If you're an adult and you want to go there, that's cool because it's a very like psychedelic and fun experience. They have nice bars. They have they have like one nice bar. They also have different shows and stuff. They actually have like EDM shows, really, really popular. But it's a very large space, which has a lot of like cool, like interactive, unique experiences. Really great for dates. It's a really great date idea. But as a tourist going to Area 15, this is a really good place if you have kids who are like between the ages of like, I would say 9 and 10 to like 15 or 16, just because it sort of feels a little bit more of a step up than like going to the aquarium, but it doesn't have like a lot of suggestive things on the inside, at least during the daytime. So the Omega Mart in particular is like this supermarket that has all these very like secret doors that you go in and inside of and out, and then you actually go and like discover a couple things on the inside, and it has like sort of like this like jungle gym sort of quality to it. So it's very like you can explore it, which is really fun. And I think people who are, kids who are like 13 or 14 would enjoy things like that. So would highly recommend Omega Mart, especially if you have kids in that sort of tween teenager range. I think once you get kids who are like 19 and 20, that's like the worst age to be in Las Vegas. Maybe I wouldn't recommend Omega Mart, but Omega Mart inside of Area 15, I would say is definitely a one cross key for our circumstances. Another thing that I kind of remembered looking off of the list sort of these attractions is one of the attractions is Dining in the Dark. Dining in the Dark, honestly, this is just me. Not worth it. I would say it's not in a hotel. You have to go off the strip for it. And again, this is going to sound really shitty of me, but the moment you have to go off the strip, this better be the most awesome experience I've ever had. But the Dine in the Dark dining experience, which was super popular when I was a concierge, they always wanted us to come. Just note that you get there and you're sort of like, it's like a warehouse. It's not even like really a restaurant. Like you're like sort of on the side of a storefront. And then you go in and then you put like the goggles on, and then you basically eat in the dark. That's the concept. Actually, you don't put the goggles on. The workers have goggles. That's the way it works. Most of the items are vegan and vegetarian because they want to make sure that they don't give something that has allergies to somebody who might be allergic. So if you're somebody who's not a big fan of vegan or vegetarian, I would say maybe skip it. But really, I would personally say that this is not worth it. Personally for me, I'm looking at the price right now. It's $93 for this experience. I would skip it. I would skip to Blackout Dining. Sorry, Blackout Dining. So moving on, let's move down the list. So as we get further and further down the list, we're going to get a little bit more contentious here. So since we're off the strip, let's stay off the strip for a little while. Let's talk about a couple of the museums. So honestly, there's actually a few museums in town. There's a Nevada History Museum. There's a Natural History Museum for Nevada. There's the Old Mormon Fort. There's also Springs Preserve, which Springs Preserve is really fun, especially for locals, and they have a lot of cool like local activities, like during Halloween and all these other things. But let's talk about the two big ones. Let's talk about the Mob Museum and the Neon Museum, which honestly, to me, are the two museums. If you're going to do a museum in Las Vegas, these are the two that you should do. Do you have to do both of them? No. I would recommend if you do both of them in one trip, awesome. Hopefully you have a lot of time. And if you came to Las Vegas to do museums, these are the two museums you do. But the Mob Museum, really cool if you're into the history of Las Vegas and the history of the mob. Like if you really enjoyed the movie Godfather Part 2, Goodfellas, Casino, very much Casino, you would really enjoy the Mob Museum. There's actually a reel that plays during the Mob Museum tour that explains what the skim is and what that was during the 1970s and 60s in Las Vegas when a lot of the mob would have their hand in a lot of these casinos. It does take a little while to go through. It's a lot of reading. They have a couple different artifacts. Like they have a piece of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre wall. They also have a couple different artifacts from different stages of the Mafia era. But it is 3 floors. It takes between 2 and 3 hours. Just depends how long you spend on each floor. It usually starts at the top, which explains the history of how the mob got started in America. The second floor is specifically how the mob infiltrated Las Vegas and then took over the city for a very long time. And the bottom floor typically focuses on the law enforcement trying to stop the mob. But overall, the Mob Museum is a really good museum. I would say that it's a 1 cross key based on the fact that if you are here for museums, this is an amazing thing to do. If you're not here for museums, then maybe it just takes time out of your day. So it really is up to you. And that is located next to Fremont Street, right off of Fremont Street. So moving on to the next museum, which is the Neon Museum. I loved the Neon Museum, but if you're somebody who wants a lot of freedom, the Neon Museum may not be for you. The Neon Museum, unlike the Mob Museum, which the Mob Museum is self-guided, you're really focused on doing things at your own pace. The Neon Museum is a timed tour. It is guided. You are not able to walk around on your own. It's also not as big as you think it is. It's actually a lot smaller, but they do cram a lot of the neon signage inside their space. And again, it used to be a neon boneyard, and they had to sort of reconfigure it to make it more tour accessible, which it is now. I would say if you're able to go to the Neon Museum, 100% worth it. It's definitely like it's a 2 cross key type of thing to do. It is hard to get reservations for it just because, especially when the weather gets better, it's much harder to get a res just because it's nicer outside because it is an outdoor museum. They do also have a really cool exhibit that is outdoors, that has music, and it's all like LED. It's really, really cool. Or projections, not LED, projections. But really enjoy the Neon Museum. When I did it, you can check it out on our Instagram page, which is ConciergeConfidential_LV. You can check that out, or on our TikTok page of what the Neon Museum experience is like. You do have to drive there though, so just make sure that you save some time for like Uber and all that other good stuff. And Neon Museum, just remember, if you do go to it during the nighttime, make a reservation before you go, because if you go the day of, they may not have space for you, and you may have to come back another day, which I did see it is not fun. So those are the 2 museums in town that I recommend that you should do while you're here. And let's kind of keep our ways going out from the Strip, and that is the Hoover Dam, Red Rock Canyon, and the Grand Canyon. So let's start with the furthest one first, the Grand Canyon. So I've only seen the Grand Canyon. I'm from Arizona. I'm 31 years old, and I've only seen the Grand Canyon one time, and that took me coming to Las Vegas, working as a concierge, getting a ride on a helicopter, and that's how I got to the Grand Canyon. So is the Grand Canyon something you can't miss? This is always funny, because when they say, like, how do you know you are an Arizonan? The number one thing is you've never been to the Grand Canyon. It's sort of like when someone says, hey, how did you go to New York and not see the Statue of Liberty? This is kind of feels like one of those cases. But you're in Nevada, so we can kind of get away with it. The Grand Canyon, if you are visiting for, let's just say, a week, let's just say you're here for 5 to 7 days, you should probably do the Grand Canyon. And especially the further you are away from the city of Las Vegas in terms of where you live, you should probably check it out. Like if you are from, let's just say, Maine, or let's just say Washington, D.C., and you came to Las Vegas and you have, a family with you, or you're just here with your significant other, it's kind of hard to say you shouldn't see the 8th wonder of the natural world, the Grand Canyon. So I would say if you're here for long enough, the Grand Canyon definitely should be on your list, but it does take time to do it. So I would say if you have like a free day, the Grand Canyon is definitely worth it. The thing is that if you do the Grand Canyon from the West Rim, it is definitely not as impressive as it is from the South Rim. Every concierge will tell you the same. It's also much easier to sell the West Rim because it's closer, but the South Rim is much, much better. You get a much better view of the Grand Canyon, just because when I say what you get a much better view, it's actually what they take pictures of when they do like promotions for the Grand Canyon is from the South Rim. The South Rim is also the national park. It is not charged to go. They don't charge. They don't charge as much. I believe they just have like a national park fee that you have to pay to go onto the national park, or not. I don't know. I didn't pay. Can't tell you. Have to ask my brother. But it is much cheaper than actually going to the West Rim, because the West Rim is owned by the Native Americans, where they do charge for going onto the space, onto the land, and then also like for parking and stuff. They don't charge a lot of those extra fees at the South Rim. So just keep that in mind. It's also not as impressive from the West Rim, just because it's not as deep, it's not as wide. It's more of sort of like the canyon, and then the Grand Canyon is going to be the South Rim. You can also try going to the North Rim, which nobody ever goes to, only if you're going to Antelope Canyon, which Antelope Canyon is really, really cool. I would say if you really, really want to do something that's not in the city but very nature-oriented, if you're able to get a reservation to go to Antelope Canyon, really, really awesome. But make sure you check before you go, because you can't make reservations once you're there. So moving on, by the way, the Grand Canyon, 2 double cross keys. I would say it's definitely something you should do, especially the further away you are from Las Vegas. If you're visiting from Europe, Australia, Asia, I would say the Grand Canyon should definitely be on your list, because who knows when you're going to get to see it again. Honestly, it's still going to be there. It's just going to be as grand, because it's only going to get deeper, because as the Colorado River loses water, all it does is get deeper. That was always my comeback when people said, "How have you never been?" That's what I would say. So speaking of the Colorado River, let's talk about the Hoover Dam. The Hoover Dam, which is located in Boulder City, just on the border between Nevada and Arizona, is one of the unbelievable architectural wonders of the world. The Hoover Dam, it's actually what creates Lake Mead. The Hoover Dam is awesome. I love technology and, just like human triumph, which that's what sort of the Hoover Dam feels like, even though it was just a public works project. But the Hoover Dam is really, really cool. It's probably, of all these 3 things that I would say that you should do, is the Hoover Dam. It's a really great like half-day tour. It ends up being like maybe 4 hours, and you get to go in. By the way, when you pay for the tour, you get to go into the Hoover Dam and then inside, which is really, really fun. I really like the Hoover Dam tour, so I think it's 100% worth it. I would give it 2 cross keys. Definitely worth your time, especially if you're here for like, let's just say 4 or 5 days and looking for something else to do. This is definitely something that should be on your list. And the cool thing is sometimes you can combine doing the Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon on the same trip. But most people, that's kind of a lot, but you're able to do that. So Hoover Dam, definitely double cross keys. Let's talk about the other canyon, that is Red Rock Canyon on the other end of town. It's always kind of funny because we would always push, like you could do the Hoover Dam and Red Rock Canyon in the same day. Red Rock Canyon is actually something you should probably do on your own, especially if you really want to get the most out of that experience. You have to pay to go on to the Red Rock preservation area where they have the Red Rocks. It's also right next to Red Rock Casino, which is pretty funny. But if you're somebody who's really into nature, I would say Red Rock Canyon is definitely something to do. It's probably one of the best places to go hiking. I do not recommend go hiking in the summer. For those of you crazy people trying to go hiking during June, July, August, don't do it. Stop it. We hate having to hear stories about the fire department having to go get you guys out of the canyon because you lost your way and it's way too hot. So Red Rock Canyon is definitely, far, especially if you're going to be on your own. It's probably about, from the Las Vegas Strip, it's probably about a 30-minute drive, maybe 40, depending on, traffic. But once you're out there, can't really call an Uber. Really difficult. There's no cell reception out there whatsoever. So keep that in mind if you go to Red Rock Canyon. To me, Red Rock Canyon is a 0 stars or 0 cross keys because I don't care. But I had friends who actually visited from Canada, and this was probably their number one thing they were so excited to see. I drove them out to Red Rock, and they saw the structure, the mountain structure or the mountains, and they loved it. So it really comes down to the person, just like everything on this list. So if you really enjoy nature or have never been around like mountains, Red Rock Canyon is a really, really fun thing that you can do. You can also just drive through it, but I mean, that's a long way to drive if you're just going to drive through for a little while. So those are our natural wonders. So let's go ahead and drop into a couple of the tourist traps, if you will, on this list. One that I meant to cover a little bit earlier in this particular podcast was the Fremont Street Experience. The Fremont Street Experience is where Fremont Street is, downtown Las Vegas. And people always say, is it worth it to go see? That's probably the number one thing that when I'm on the Strip, people will ask, hey, is it worth it to go see Fremont Street? If you've never been to Las Vegas, if it is your first time, 100% make this part of your trip to go to Fremont Street. Fremont Street, especially if you do it during dusk, so when the sun is going down, just so you can see it turn from day to nighttime at Fremont Street. It's really cool just because you're able to see all the classic neon signage. You get to see the cowboy, Vegas Vic, and then now because of Derek Stevens and the Circa Hotel and Casino, you can see Vegas Vicky inside of the Circa Hotel. They also have some of our first hotels in Las Vegas down on Fremont Street, like the Golden Gate. They also still have, of course, the Pioneer Club, which has Vegas Vic. They have Binion's, which is one of the first high roller joints because of Benny Binion. You can take your picture with $1 million. It's definitely more kitschy down on Fremont Street. Also, it's debatable if you want to take your kids down there after dark, just because there's a lot of very revealing things on Fremont that you may want to skip while you're in town. But it's really fun, especially if you're just here with a group of friends. You want to bar hop. It's probably one of the better bar hopping things to do, is down on Fremont Street. And they also have live music, live free music, up and down Fremont Street, in the evening, almost every day. It just depends on the day you come. If you come on a Tuesday, we may not have a lot of live music, but if you're here on a Friday or Saturday, sometimes they have free concerts. They'll have things like Simple Plan. They'll have, Smash Mouth. They've had all these different bands out on Fremont Street. So definitely check it out. And of course, the Neon Street Experience, or the Fremont Street Experience, which is the big giant canopy that extends over Fremont Street, which actually has a live show every hour on the hour, starting, I believe, at 6 o'clock. And it's really, really cool. If you've never seen it, it's a really fun experience. So definitely get down there and check out Fremont Street Experience. If you've never done it before and it's your first time to Las Vegas, I think this is definitely something you should try while you're here. You do not walk. Do not walk from Las Vegas Boulevard to Fremont Street. Let's cover the two malls. There's a couple of different malls in town that people are, kind of know about, and that is the Forum Shops at Caesar's Palace. The Forum Shops, I would say Double Cross Keys. Definitely check out the Forum Shops just because it's fun to sort of just relax and walk through with all the cobblestones and look at all the different high-end stores. You might jump into one. They have a Nike factory down there. They also have Water Grill, which is delicious. They have the Palm down there. They have Joe's Crab Shack, a lot of different restaurants. They also have a great Levi's store. I only buy my Levi's at this one store at the Forum Shops. They also have a Lululemon, which people really love. But Forum Shops, again, it's one of those things that it's touristy, but it's also free just to walk through the Forum Shops. So why not do it? It's also a nice little break, especially if you're visiting in July or June or August or September when it gets really, really hot. It's a really nice place to just walk in, chill, relax, listen to the fountains, maybe doze off and take a nap. Definitely say the Forum Shops are a really good stop. Same thing with the Grand Canal Shops. The Grand Canal Shops are essentially identical to what the Forum Shops are. A little tighter. They also have the gondolas inside as well. So the Grand Canal Shops also have lots of restaurants, which I would say both these options are really great. Definitely I wouldn't protest you going to do any of these two things. But let's talk about those gondolas. So the gondolas, which you can rent, Just keep in mind these particulars. They have two types of gondolas. They have gondolas that go inside the mall, and they have gondolas on the outside of the hotel. Never, under any circumstances, should you do the outdoor gondolas. Never do the outdoor gondolas. That is a rookie move. Don't do it. The outdoor gondolas are just not as good as the indoor gondolas. You're basically just floating around in a big giant pool. If you do the ones on the inside, you're actually doing like going through the canals or the fake canals. And they sing to you. It all has like this wonderful like echo, which is nice. And it's really, really fun that everybody's watching you as you have this very created lovely moment. But that is the Grand Canal Shop gondolas. They are $40 per person. I think $45 per person. And it is your person. So that's $90 right there. And another couple if they're the ones that paid for that time slot as well. The way that it works is you have to do first come, first serve basis. When you get to the gondolas, it's better to get there early because then you have a lot more times available to rent the gondola for that time. It's not like an hourly basis. It's basically whatever their like tour is. So for the gondolas on the inside, you start at one point, go to the end of the water, and then go back through those gondola, canals. So gondolas, if you've never done them, I would say it's let's call it a one cross key, just because, hey, if you want to do it, go ahead. Be as cheesy as you want. Because if you can't go to real Italy, come to Vegas, baby. So I think I've hit most of the tourist attractions that are in the city. A couple of the other ones that are sort of popping up as I'm finishing the pod. The Chandelier Bar is definitely worth going to check out because, again, free because you just take a picture with it and then keep on moving. Also, the Crystal Shopping Mall on the inside. If you're walking through it, you're walking through it. And the atrium over at the Aria, some people say is beautiful, which it is. It's definitely one of those awesome things to check out if you're in that particular area. I get this one a lot. This one's really fun. Is In-N-Out worth it? We actually have a couple different In-N-Outs that are being built on the Las Vegas Strip. There's actually one by Allegiant Stadium. There's the original one that was in Las Vegas, which is right next to New York, over the bridge. And then they also have one at the Link Promenade, and I believe they're opening one over at the new Las Vegas Boulevard Center, which is across from the Aria and across from Whataburger. Is In-N-Out worth it for those of you on the East Coast? It's going to be hilarious. If you're traveling from outside the world, yes, please try an In-N-Out burger. We love In-N-Out on this coast. It's always going to happen. You East Coasters are going to come to Las Vegas, try an In-N-Out burger, and say, "Oh my God, Shake Shack is better. Oh, it's all hype." We don't care. We don't care. Your pizza's fine. Your pizza's fine in New York. You guys in Chicago, deep dish, that don't count. That don't count as pizza. It's a pie. I guess that's why they call it a pizza pie. So now that I've made a very controversial thought known at the end of the pod, feel free to subscribe, comment, whatever you like on this particular podcast. Hopefully that cleared some things out for those of you coming to Las Vegas, thinking about, should I do this, should I not? Hopefully this was a helpful episode. Again, check out my other podcast, which is The Movie Magic. The Magic of Movies. This is what happens when you have two pods. The Magic of Movies. Please check it out. I'm really proud of the first episode. I tell you guys about my top 5 favorite movies off the bat, just so you guys can figure out where I'm coming from. And hopefully I'll come up with a new episode soon. I saw a lot of cool movies lately. Like, what did I see? I saw 12 Angry Men, which I was in sort of like an old school movie watch sort of mode, and that's what I watched. I also watched Casablanca, which is a banger, but those are, I don't think, on my top 5 list, but definitely check those out. It is out now. You can check out anywhere you get your podcasts, The Magic of Movies with me, Brian Ortega. But again, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to the pod. Make sure you check me out on all of our socials. And again, if you see me out in town, come say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.